Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some interesting news out of the state of Florida where special election candidate Democrat Josh Weil, who you may remember from back in the earlier spring, has announced that he is running for the U.S. Senate in Florida in 2026. The Florida Democrat Josh Weil, the once little-known progressive teacher who stunned the political world in March by raising nearly $14 million for a failed congressional special election bid, is now running to become the Sunshine State's next senator. Weil is the first major Democratic candidate to file for the 2026 Senate race, saying, quote, "I'll be everywhere." Weil said of his planned campaign tour across the state, which officially kicks off on Wednesday. By entering the race, Weil hopes to replace U.S. Senator Ashley Moody, a Republican selected by Governor Ron DeSantis in January to replace Marco Rubio once he became Secretary of State. Moody, a former state attorney general who shares a close relationship with U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, brought in $1.2 million through her joint fundraising committee and raised nearly $400,000 in her campaign account during the first 3 months of this year for the 2026 election. She has yet to attract a serious primary challenger so far. Moody has also brought together a campaign apparatus that looks similar to the team that helped Trump win in 2024, one that includes pollster Tony Fabrizio and former Trump campaign co-chairs Chris LaCivita at a super PAC supporting her election. Her ties to key players in the Trump orbit are a sign the president is unlikely to support a challenger during the GOP primary, even though DeSantis picked Moody without asking for Trump's permission or blessing. Trump's involvement in the state he calls home could make Weil's Senate bid more difficult. He previously sought the Democratic nomination for Senate during the 2022 cycle, but lost to former Representative Val Demings, who went on to lose to Rubio by 16 points, despite massively out-fundraising him. Weil said that in the next 17 months, Trump's favorability could fall, even in Florida, citing his tariffs announcements as an example. By this time next year, Weil said, we could see Ashley Moody trying to distance herself from Trump to save her political campaign. So this is very interesting news. I'm going to show you first the 2026 or 2025 special election results. You may remember the name now where Randy Fine, the Republican, defeated Josh Weil, the Democrat. This district was represented by Michael Waltz, who got appointed to the Trump administration. So this was an open seat. Randy Fine, the Republican, defeated Josh Weil by about 14 points. Even though when you look at this race, you may think, okay, what's the big deal? Well, actually it showed the race going into it could be very close, where the polls going to the general election, Fabrizio Ward, which is the Republican-aligned pollster, showed Josh Weil leading over Randy Fine, 44% to 41%, 10% of the vote still being undecided, but Weil actually leading this race. Another was St. Pete polls, which obviously is very popular in the state of Florida. Their polling firm comes up all the time when you talk about Florida elections. Randy Fine here only led by 4 points over Josh Weil, where 6% of the vote was undecided. That was within the poll's margin of error for Randy Fine versus Josh Weil. It could either be a big win for Fine or it could be a tied race if you look at it the other way for Josh Weil. So there's a lot of optimism among Democrats that Josh Weil could make this race very competitive and maybe even flip this race. And that's saying a lot, seeing as it was a very uphill battle from the Cook PGI of this district, which is Republican plus 14. So based on its election history, you would say it's a likely Republican district, but that's as close as you could get without calling it a safe Republican district. And then Josh Weil was able to raise almost $9.5 million in this race, and he spent everything but $1.2 million of it trying to win this race. So the Democrats are throwing a lot of money and a lot of support behind Josh Weil to try and flip this otherwise safe Republican district. However, Randy Fine ended up winning by 14 points, which is still an underperformance when you look at the district itself. For instance, in 2024, Michael Waltz won this district by 33 points. In 2022, he won it by 50 points. And in 2020, before it was redrawn, he won it by about 21.3. So 14 points is not as good as Michael Waltz did. It's literally less than half as good as Michael Waltz did in 2024 back in November. But Randy Fine, the Republican, was still able to hold on and win it. Now we're talking, though, about 2026, where the Republican Ashley Moody, the incumbent U.S. Republican senator, will be running for re-election, and now Josh Weil will be running on the Democratic side. Jake Lang is another Republican who's also in this race. He is declared for this race. All eyes are on Republicans Kat Cammack, Matt Gaetz, and Corey Mills. If any of them decide to challenge Ashley Moody in a Republican primary, things should get more interesting on that front if they do. Josh Weil right now, there are several Democrats who will file paperwork to run for this race. Josh Weil is the first Democrat to officially join the race. Other Democrats who have filed the paperwork include Paul Ron Cruz, Frank DeMola, K.L. Doherty, Alex Gould, a business owner, Alan Grayson, the former U.S. representative from the 9th District and perennial candidate, currently running for state senate, is probably the most well-known Democrat in this bunch that could be running. Another that's expressed interest is Alexander Vindman, a former director of European Affairs for the U.S. National Security Council and whistleblower in the 2019 Trump-Ukraine scandal, and brother of U.S. Representative Eugene Vindman, who represents a district in Virginia. As for the general election, though, the predictions for this one are pretty solid for the Republicans. Inside Elections, Cook Politico, and Sabla Crystal Ball all have this race listed as solid Republican or safe Republican. Race to the White House has it listed as lean Republican. And when you look at the election history in Florida, it's really not too much of a surprise. I showed you the House seat, the 6th district that Weil ran for. But let's look at the recent election history. The Florida Senate race in 2024, Rick Scott, despite some polls showing it being a close race going into Election Day where maybe it could be a little bit more competitive, Rick Scott ended up winning by about 12.8% in this Senate race. In 2022, Marco Rubio, as the article mentioned, won his race by about 16.4%. Back in 2018, when Florida was still a toss-up state, Rick Scott had a very close race against Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, where he defeated him by 0.12%. But even then, 2016, when Florida was much more of a swing state, Rubio still won by 7.7%. It has really swung a lot in recent years to the Republican side. You can look from 2018 to 2024 on the Rick Scott side of things. Florida shifted about 12.7% in the Republican direction from 2018 to 2024. From 2022 to 2016, Florida has shifted 8.7% for Marco Rubio on that side of things as well. On the presidential side, Donald Trump won the state by 13.1% in 2024 after winning it by 3.4% in 2020 and winning it by 1.2% in 2016. Florida shifted 9.7% from 2020 to 2024. From 2016 to 2024, it shifted 11.9%. Florida is becoming one of the most fastest growing Republican states in the country. And even though 2026 is supposed to be a very good night for the Democrats, I don't think in the state of Florida it's going to be all that likely going to change. Lastly, on the governor's side of things, we saw Ron DeSantis win the governor's race by 19.4% in 2022 after winning it by 0.39% in 2018. Again, just to show you what that shift ended up looking like, Florida swung approximately 19 points to the Republican direction. So for the 2026 Senate map inside of things, for right now, this Senate seat in Florida, even with Josh Weil running, maybe he'll be able to raise some money in this race after his special election performance. But it's a Florida Senate race in 2026. I think we expect Ashley Moody to win this race by over 15% of the vote. Even though it is supposed to be a Democratic-friendly midterm year, I don't think Florida is going to be one of those states where even if the Democrats are polling well enough, it won't be well enough to win the state of Florida. And I don't even think it'll be enough to win it by under 15 points for the Republicans. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you did, leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts, and hope to see you in a future video.